You're welcome. I am Iron Master Meg, and these are my friends, yeah. And we are here to pump
you up in your faith.
That's right. We don't want you to have those flabby faith muscles.
So we are going to help you strengthen your faith.
Listen to me now and hear me later. You have many opportunities to grow in your faith.
This year, for our Lenten journey, we are going to talk about change.
That's right. And you know what most people think about change?
Change?
But you don't have to be little baby, tiny, scaredy kittens.
When you put yourself in God's hands, you can learn to face or fear. And you are more open to God transforming you into the person you were created to be.
Yeah, that's right, Grant. Look in the mirror. Do you like what you see? Because God wants you to be the best that He created you to be. Yeah.
This week we are talking about change of seasons based on Ecclesiastes chapter 3 verses 1 through 8. Let's listen in as our friends share our faith.
For everything there is a season, and a time for every matter under heaven, a time to be born, and a time to die, a time to plant, and a time to pluck up what is planted, a time to kill, and a time to heal, a time to break down, and a time to build up, a time to weep, and a time to laugh, a time to mourn, and a time to dance, a time to throw away stones, and a time to gather stones together, a time to embrace, and a time to refrain from embracing, a time to seek, and a time to lose, a time to keep, and a time to throw away, a time to tear, and a time to sow, a time to keep silence, and a time to speak, a time to love, and a time to hate, a time for war, and a time for peace.
You know, for me, when I think of season, I think of just different parts of your journey in life. Becoming independent was a season for me. At that point in my life, I didn't have a relationship with God, but it was still a season, and I still think that He was there, you know, molding me and preparing me. Becoming a mother was, you know, probably one of the most inspiring seasons of change for me, because that was the first time that I really understood real love. I don't think that I think that, you know, you're young and you know, you find someone that you want to spend your life with, but I don't think we can really grasp the love that God has for us until we have children of our own and we understand the lengths that we would go for those children. My mother was diagnosed with breast cancer when I was in middle school, and which is a really hard time for kids, because middle school you're sort of transitioning from being a child, but you're not quite an adult. And you know, you go from being friends with all of these people to this school where you're now having to try and figure out who you are and where do I want to spend my time. And in the midst of all that, my mother's diagnosed with a disease that I was sure was going to kill her, because at that time, and especially back then, you know, breast cancer wasn't as talked about as it is now. And my grandmother died of ovarian cancer. before I was even born. So when I heard cancer, being a 13-year-old, I'm thinking, I'm going to lose my mother. And so going through that life change and then this life change was really scary. And 2 years later, as I was going into high school, my mother was diagnosed with leukemia. And for my entire sophomore year, she was in Omaha at UNMC in isolation. So for nine months, she lived there. And I think that that molded the next probably 8 years of my life.
Definitely coming to college is a different change in season, I guess. But I feel like my faith life has definitely grown since I've been here. It gave me a chance to really understand what I actually did believe instead of what my parents just believed. And so I feel like that was a really big defining moment for me, because I was like, yeah, this is what I believe. So that was really cool to just actually know in my heart that this is where I want to be. But definitely, I guess, having Campus Lutheran has helped tremendously. So.
My changes in life started very young. My mother was a Sunday school teacher. We had to go to church every Sunday, and our whole family was built on faith, and we were a pretty good size farm family, and we enjoyed the farm pretty much the way it was in those days, as being subsistent farmers. We had all kinds of different livestock, and family was extremely important to us. And as time went through the changes and the changes of the seasons, we found that those changes sometimes were good and sometimes they were bad.
From that point on, I started building these walls. I'm not going to be vulnerable. I'm not going to let people break me down. The problem was my walls had no stability, because, you know, many years later, you know, I got into drugs and alcohol, and it was rough. I mean, I ended up in a relationship with a very abusive boyfriend. You know, maybe I thought that I could help change him. I couldn't change myself, and so maybe it would be easier to try and focus all that energy on changing someone else. The problem is you can't do that. You know, you're only in control of your own choices. They say that you have a life-altering moment where, when you let Jesus into your heart, that you completely are not the same person. And I believe that so much, because it wasn't an overtime. It was like instantly. I knew. God saw how vulnerable and broken I was, and I think he needed me at that point in my life, because that was the only time that I was really willing to listen to him or be open enough for him to enter. And he did, and it was just like instantly. I mean, I will never forget the night that I left a church program where I had given my life to Jesus. And this is coming from a person who didn't know Jesus. I didn't know God. I wouldn't exactly call myself an atheist, but I certainly wasn't.
Agnostic.
Yeah, I just, whatever. You know, if it's real, it's real. If it's not, it doesn't affect me. And I'll never forget the night that I walked into my apartment and my boyfriend was sitting, I didn't have to say a word. I just walked in, and there must have been angels or a glow or something about me. He looked at me, and all of a sudden, he became the vulnerable one. He looked at me and he said, "I'm gone, aren't I?" And I went, "Yep." get your stuff and hit the road. Never talked to him again. Never spoke to him again. It wasn't easy to become a Christian because I did go through, you know, you're sort of forced to see yourself in this different light. Yeah, and it was scary. It was like, wow. And so, you know, I did turn to alcohol and stuff to try and, but this time it was different. This time it was like God kept me on a leash. He knew I was gonna stumble, but this time he didn't let me get very far. It changed my whole life, changed my outlook on everything. Doesn't mean my life is perfect. It doesn't mean I don't go through things, because I do. I still struggle, but it means I have a purpose. You know what I mean? That I am loved, even when I don't feel loved or worthy of being loved. I am.
Welcome back. Think about it. What is your faith story?
How is God changing you?
Talk with your family and share your thoughts.
Visit our website at www.firstlutherankearney.org for resources to help you guide your discussion.
And you can join us next week where we will be here, right here to
Pump you up in your faith.